Le agradezco mucho al alcalde de Tulsa, a Monroe Nichols, que esté hoy aquí con nosotros. Mayor, thank you for coming again.
Glad to be back. Glad to be back.
Okay. Sir, la primera pregunta es, ¿cómo califica su primer año en el gobierno de Tulsa? ¿Cómo se siente?
How would I assess the first year? This year has been one where I feel like we've made a lot of progress. We still have so much to do. We've talked a lot about homelessness. I know we visited about that a lot. And this year, we've opened a winter shelter in East Tulsa. We're getting ready to open a low barrier shelter. We started Safe Move, which is going to get 300 people off the street. So proud about that work that's in motion. On the education front, we created the Office of Children, Youth, and Families. So really thinking about how are we going to support young people and families all across the city, particularly those who are maybe on the lower end of the income spectrum. How do we help them kind of grow from an economic mobility standpoint? From an economic development standpoint, really making sure we have balanced economic growth. So there's not just one part of town that always benefits, that we all can benefit. And I'm really proud of what we've done in the area of public safety and certainly in our relationships with tribal nations. And so I feel like we're doing it together as a community. So I assess the first year has gone pretty well. I'm really pleased, not satisfied, not content, but I've been very pleased with the first year.
Alcalde, yo creo que uno de los pendientes es las personas sin hogar. Creo que usted ya está intentando hacer algo para resolverlo. ¿Cómo le afectó el plan del gobernador, la operación SAFE? ¿Esto ayudó o solo generó más el problema?
I will say when the governor sent in Highway Patrol, I don't think I would characterize it as particularly helpful. But it didn't stop us from doing what we were doing. We still are very much focused on getting people out of encampments and getting them into housing, getting them supported. Since Operation Safe came, we've actually decommissioned 3 really large encampments. One actually here in East Tulsa that we did on private property. And we've housed almost 60 people. So they're in housing, being supported, and we're on to the next encampment. So, I feel like there's some people who believe you can just come in and force people to move and that's solving the issue of homelessness. I think the governor thought that. I think since then the governor's actually acknowledged that maybe that's not the way that you do it, right? And so for us, I'm not sure it set us back. I think it set back the trust that we've been able to establish with some of the folks who we're trying to help. But our Safe Move is still moving forward. And so we're still getting those 300 people off the streets. I voiced my concerns with the governor, after Operation Safe was launched. But we're really about moving forward. And hopefully there's some ways we can work with the state. But I feel like although it was certainly an interruption in the work that we're trying to do, it didn't really set us back. We were able to continue on, pick up where we left off and move forward.
Mayor, alcalde, usted ha pedido subir los impuestos a las ventas locales. Es algo que aún no se aprueba por el Consejo Municipal y que aún tendría que ser aprobado por los votantes en elecciones, tal vez en noviembre, maybe en noviembre. ¿No le preocupa ser visto como un alcalde que sube los impuestos?
I'm not sure I'm concerned about being seen as the mayor that raised taxes. I think I want to be seen as the mayor that solved problems. So every dollar that we get in, it's going to address issues that we know to be true in the community. The reality is for Tulsa is our sales tax rate is lower than all of our neighboring communities, just about, much lower than Oklahoma City's. In fact, it's the 5th lowest. If you take the metro areas of Tulsa and Oklahoma City, we're the 5th lowest out of all those. But we have all these big problems that we have to solve. I think anybody who is listening, watching, and thinking about how we improve our community, they recognize that you got to invest in yourself to do it. So how do you truly build a strong economy where you got to be able to invest? How do you make sure that our neighborhoods, are safe? You got to invest in public safety. So I think what I hope is we're pulling ourselves into a reality that where we've been for the last 40 years, the last time we actually raised sales taxes permanently, is not necessarily good enough for today. But with every resource that we get, what are we doing to actually move the community forward? What do taxpayers get for the money they put in? And so I'm less concerned about the negative connotation on raising taxes. I'm more concerned about making sure we have the resources we need to solve problems I hear about from people every day. It is certainly not the most fun thing to do to say, oh yeah, I'm the mayor. I want to raise taxes. But the reality is these are about direct investments we make back into ourselves. So the question is, do we want to invest back into ourselves in this community and then see what that does for us? And I'm really excited about being a mayor to really partner with the community, have the conversations necessary, and talk about how do we invest in Tulsa.
Okay. El tema de la lucha contra la inmigración ilegal es controversial a nivel nacional. Recientemente una tragedia en Minneapolis lo llevó a dar un comunicado que ha sido fuertemente criticado por el sheriff de Tulsa y también por el sheriff del condado Rogers. Incluso el de Rogers le critica a usted y al jefe de la policía de Tulsa. Usted luego dice que respeta el trabajo de policías. ¿Nos podría explicar más el contexto?
Yeah. So I'll start by saying when I was growing up, my dad was a police officer. My uncle is a police officer still, and my mom was a probation officer. So I grew up in a kind of a law enforcement family. And there's not been any time in my career where I've ever, even considered disrespecting folks who protect us every day. What was true about my statement was, though, is that I really do believe that when things happen, there has to be some accountability around it. And I believe that across the board. I think when I've come here and talked in the past, I've talked about how I think about accountability as mayor. I talked about ending homelessness by getting a functional zero by 2030. That's accountability. We've talked about 6,000 affordable units by 2028. That's accountability. We talk about making this the safest city in the country. Those are all things we're holding ourselves accountable for. And so when we see things like we saw in Minneapolis and somebody is killed, there has to be some sort of an investigation to help us make sense of what happened. It doesn't necessarily mean that you're assigning guilt to anybody necessarily, but we do need to understand what's going on there. And that's the truest sense of accountability. We do it every day at the Tulsa Police Department. If something happens, and even when officers are justified, which we had several of those situations this last year, but you still have to investigate it, and that's where the accountability piece comes in. And so the criticism that I got from Vic Regalado, I really felt like some of that was more politically charged than it was based on actual principle, because I didn't name the officer. I didn't say you need to go to jail. I said there needs to be justice. There has to be some accountability by way of an investigation. As soon as that shooting happened, if I remember correctly, Vice President of the United States said, the officer had absolute immunity, or the ICE agent had absolute immunity, and that doesn't exist. That makes people feel like when bad things happen, there's not going to be any sort of accountability. I think it's really important, given all the work that we've done here locally to build trust between law enforcement and the community. Major Phelps has been a big part of that. I think Chief Larson has been a part of that. Deputy Chief Warmerhouse has been a part of that. I think people need to know that in this community, we do hold ourselves accountable. And so the criticism that I got, I felt was incredibly political. But at the same time, I'm not here to fight back and forth with the sheriff in Tulsa County or Rogers County. I'd rather us partner together. And I want people to know that we can be united. We can have difficult conversations. But the foundations are which I'm an agent of the government in a lot of ways now. And if I don't hold myself accountable for what happens in every neighborhood across this city, well, what does that mean for people that live there? If things aren't right in your neighborhood, but there's nowhere to go to figure out how to make them right, well, like, is that the kind of place that any of us want to live in? I don't think it is. And so I thought the criticism was certainly based in politics, and I think it was an opportunity for someone who disagreed with me to call me out by name, which is fine. But at the end of the day, I respect those in uniform, even those who criticize me. But I'm not going to back down on the fact that we got to have a community where we have to hold ourselves accountable for the things that we do. And that has to come by way of an investigation. And so we can all understand, how things are going to change or how things are going to stay the same. But those things are important.
Siguiendo con el tema de migración, hace poco más de un año me recibió en su oficina en el City Hall y me recalcó que el gobierno de Tulsa y que la policía de Tulsa no apoyaría operativos de deportación. A enero del 2026, ¿sigue igual su postura aún con la amenaza del gobierno federal?
Yeah, no, we're still the same. As I said before, our big thing is want to make sure that in this community, no matter what neighborhood you live in, when you call the Tulsa Police Department, you can expect them to come help you, not to do anything else, right? And so we are a law enforcement agency here to protect public safety. We're not immigration police. We're not involved in deportations. That's not the world that we live in, and not something that we ever want to be involved in. because when it comes down to it, we've had a long-standing history in Tulsa. I think we're going on 2 years now, where every violent crime has been solved. And you do that because people trust you and are willing to talk to you. If you undermine that within a community, it makes us all less safe. And what I hope is going to be true, because I look at what's happening in a place like Minneapolis, and I hate the fact that you got citizens, U.S. citizens, who are clashing with ICE agents. And I think it's not a great commentary on where we are as a country. And so I hope, as even the federal government moves forward, that they do a better job of listening to cities, understand the kind of multicultural communities that we are building all across America, and figure out how do we have some sort of reform that doesn't threaten people's lives. Because I also would argue that the ICE agents themselves are put in a horrible position, being dropped in the middle of neighborhoods, trying to, perform these actions, and people don't want that, right? So it makes it real dangerous. So for us, where we've been from when I took office to where we are now is completely unchanged, and I think that's really critically important, because we have to work to build the best city we possibly can. We can't do it if there's a deep distrust of law enforcement, and I think we've gotten past that, and we want to make sure we stay in a place where people feel like they got the best people wearing badges anywhere in the country, because I believe we do.
Aún no hemos visto aquí en Tulsa redadas federales. Yo esperaría que no vengan, pero si vienen, creo que ahí no hay mucho que se pueda hacer. ¿Tiene usted algún plan en caso de que eso pasara?
We don't have a plan in place necessarily, because we don't, we're not, coordinating with anybody. But I think in the case of that happen, just like I've done ever since I've been in office, it's really about going out and engaging the community so people can understand, kind of what's going on, and hopefully have a sense of confidence in our ability to keep each other safe. And I think the Tulsa Police Department's done a great job of that as well. My hope is it's something that we don't have to deal with, because you see the impact that it has in places like Minneapolis and other places. So I wouldn't say we have a large-scale plan in if that's an eventuality, but I think what we've seen, we've had tough things that have challenged this community. We've found ways to come together to find some commonality and solidarity, and making sure we can keep people safe, keep people supported. I imagine we will respond in the same way, but my hope is that we continue down the road of not having that be the reality in Tulsa, Oklahoma. But if it is, we'll have to come together as a community and figure it out.
Ha pasado un año en su trabajo actual como alcalde de Tulsa. En el tiempo que sigue, ¿qué planes tiene? ¿Qué planes nuevos por venir? ¿Y cuáles son los principales desafíos pendientes?
It's been, what's on the horizon is what's always been there. Things I talked about, getting over some of our challenges like homelessness and meeting our needs around public safety, really, focus on investing in young people. And one of the biggest challenges that we have is the resource constraints. We talked a little bit about sales tax increases, things like that. We're going to have to figure out how do we resource some of these challenges to get us where we need to be. Because I do think, if you look, I think Tulsa was number 2 on places to move to in 2026. We were number 7 on places to visit in 2026. And so the progress that we're starting to see, people are taking notice of it. But we got to make sure that when they get here, they see a city willing to invest in itself. Nobody wants to invest in you if you don't invest in yourself, right? And so what I hope is that we do a good job of having a real conversation about resource generation, and that will then help us continue to be a city that's on the rise, on the move. And I think that's starting to happen. Like I said, only behind Chattanooga, Tennessee, as far as places to move to and top 10 and places to visit. We want to make sure now that this is a place where families can thrive. And to do that, we're going to have to make sure we're investing in people. So I'm excited about the rest of the term. You're going to see us be really, really consistent, because I believe that the best way to build an excellent city is that, your priorities when you were a first-year mayor aren't significantly different the second year and the third year. There has to be a consistent through line there where we're holding ourselves accountable to get it right, and we're going to continue to do that.
Are you going to find the re-election, or you don't know now?
What's that?
Are you going to find the re-election?
I got a long way to go before I'm reelected, but we got city council races coming up. So city council races are coming up in 2026. Councilor Bingle, who represents here, will be up. But it'll be an interesting year, I think. It'll be an interesting year.
Okay. So, Mayor, thank you for coming again.
Absolutely.
This is not the last time.
No, absolutely not. I love coming back. Like I said, I'm like, man, I'm under the bright lights now, but happy to come out anytime. I'll say, a great partner of mine in the mayor's office is Crystal Reyes, deputy mayor. I don't know if Crystal's been out to do an interview yet, but you should have her out. If not, if you have her out anyway. But anybody on our team that you want to talk to, we got Jabron Pasha, who works in health and well-being, who's the chief medical officer. We got Gene Bullmash, who does housing. We got Emily Hall, who's homelessness. All the issues that we have going in the mayor's office. I want you to know, if you want to interview anybody on our team to talk about those issues more in depth, we want to be able to do that so people in the community can kind of see not just the individuals, they can hear all the information that's going to allow them to, participate in all the opportunities, but also, get a feel for what direction the city's headed in.
Thank you, Mayor.
Absolutely. Good to see you.
Síguenos en Instagram como Qué Buena Tulsa. Síguenos en Facebook como Qué Buena Tulsa. Suscríbete a nuestro canal de YouTube Qué Buena Tulsa. Búscanos en Twitter Qué Buena Tulsa.
Qué buena.